Hello everyone, welcome to OdinSchool. In this session, we are going to learn about two important things in Tableau. One is axis, where we are going to see different types of axis components. And in the second case, we are going to talk about references. In references also, we are going to see multiple components to it. Even though axis and references are not very visibly used everywhere, in practical life, in the real world environment, using references and using axis becomes very vital, because it actually helps us to add more layers to the visualization without creating multiple charts. Let's see how and what axes and references are, and how can we take those components and leverage its capabilities to create amazing insights. Before getting into it, first let's learn why should someone first let's ask, why should someone learn Tableau? Tableau is a data visualization tool. It is not just a data visualization tool, it can also perform basic data analytical work, and it is one of the most powerful data visualization tool in the market. Now, why should someone want to visualize their data? Because in real time, the data is always humongous in nature. The number of rows and columns that we have in data sets in the current world is very huge. Whenever we have huge amount of data set, as a human being, it becomes really tough for us to understand the hidden patterns and trends inside them. Then how can we generate the information out of a data? For us to understand the business, for us to understand the data, the best way to transform the data is to put into a visual representation. If the data is put in a visual representation, then it becomes really easy for anyone to understand what is the contextual hidden patterns and trends that are there inside the data. And also it becomes easy for us to understand where are we heading towards our business. It can be any parameters, any factors, any dimensions or measures that can be inside the data, but we can actually leverage the capability of converting the raw numbers into visual representation, through which the entire context of the data can be understood. So it becomes vital to learn data visualization tool irrespective of your industrial choices. It is useful irrespective of whatever fields that you are going to pick in the IT industry. Now, let me quickly introduce about OdinSchool as well as about me. OdinSchool is a technology upskilling platform. They help us continuously acquire new skills. Their agenda is to stay skilled and stay ahead. About me, I'm Gautam Kumar Jayachandran. I have 6+ years of experience working as a senior data scientist. I work in several technologies, starting from Excel, SQL, Python, Tableau, machine learning, and analytics. That is pretty much my expertise. Let's get into today's agenda. In agenda, we are going to learn about individual, blended, and dual axis, three different components of axis, and also we are going to learn about three different types of references: reference lines, reference distribution, and reference band. We will also see outlier reduction using references. All four types of references can also be seen with different examples. Now let's get started. Since everything is practical, let us go into the machine and understand how and what particular chart is an individual axis, what particular chart is a dual axis, and what is a blended axis, what is the difference between them, when can we use them, all those informations with examples. You see here we have customer and order information in this table. Now I would like to let me delete these parameters first. I would like to delete few of the things here. Perfect. So the first thing is, how do I create a basic chart? Say for an example, segment. Segment is only 3, so I'll keep subcategory against sales or any other measure, maybe sales. Right click, deselect this, and show the bars out of it. Now this is the easiest way to create a bar chart. But in this case, I'm seeing only one measure that is there inside this view. What is the measure? The measure is sales. Okay, we have only sales information that is there in this data set. what if the customer wants to compare quantity against sales? How this sales have been generated? The question would be, by selling how much of a quantity, this much of sales is generated across all the subcategories. To understand this, we can drag quantity into the row shelf. We can keep quantity below and the sales above, and we can enable the label. While enabling the label, we can understand by selling 2976 products under the subcategory accessories, the business was able to generate $1,67,380 as sales. So I can understand quantity against sales. What happens here is, both the cases, both my quantity and sales, my x-axis is same. My x-axis is only 1, but for one x-axis I have two individual y-axis. When I say individual y-axis, because the scale size is different completely. The scale size of quantity is in zeros, 2000s, 4000s and 6000, whereas in sales the interval is in 1 lakh, 0 to 1 lakh, 1 lakh to 2 lakh, 2 lakh to 3 lakh in distribution. So these are two different individual y-axis against one x-axis. Let me draw this and show you. Yeah, in this case, this particular concept is called as individual axis. If you see the mark shelf, in mark shelf there are two different mark shelf. One is for sum of sales, another one is for sum of quantity. Here what we can do is, we can try to format this so it will look nice. I'll choose format option, remove the grid lines. Perfect. So yes, let me show you how it actually works. Or maybe I'll choose the arrow here to draw this. This is my y-axis and this is my x-axis. So what does machine tells us? I'll draw the lines so we will be able to understand what is this. X-axis and y-axis denoted by x, denoted by y. So in this case what happens is, there will be values representing my x-axis and values representing my y-axis. However, we have only one use case of x-axis here. What can be done is, the machine allows you to create one more y-axis on the same x-axis. Yes. So what happens in that case is, this particular y-axis will act as one chart and this particular portion of the y-axis will act as another chart. So there are technically two charts in it, but you should be very careful about the usage of two charts, because Tableau by theory does not allow you to create two different charts on the same sheet. It allows you to create only one chart. Now what we are having is, we are having one chart only according to Tableau x and y axis, but since we are having two y axis, it is considered as two different chart. This will be my second chart and this will be my first chart. Here there will be one y-axis corresponding to the scales of this first chart, and there will be another chart where it will be corresponding to the scales of the second chart. However, the x-axis will remain the same. For a common x-axis, if I have to have two different values, then it becomes individual axis, because both the cases we have two individual y-axis. There is not linkage between the scales of x-axis, secondary y-axis and primary y-axis. So this will be my primary y-axis, and here it will be my secondary y-axis. So this is how it can actually leverage the abilities to plot different information. But the drawback in using individual axis is that you cannot have multiple layers of it. Say if the user might want to add one more layer profit to it, you can add it, but the way it will look is it will look very clumsy. It will look very too much of information is there in this view if you see this. But let's format this neat and clean and see how it actually will work. I'll right click, format, remove the grid lines. This is actually consuming a lot of space, so I'll remove the headers and then I'll remove the grid lines in both rows and columns. Then let me go to the sheet. Okay, perfect. But this doesn't seem to be formatted properly. What I'll do is I'll work on the numbers and the fonts and everything else. I'll deselect the title here. Now I'll go to sum of sales first. I would like to keep sum of sales in the lightest color possible. This one should work for me. And sum of quantity, I would like to keep it in the darkest color possible. And sum of profit for me will be somewhere in orange. Something like an orange. This way what happens is now we will now be able to quantify or say what is what. So the marks are different, are specified in different colors. Let me drag this into color shelf. Yeah, let's choose the colors. Profit will be, okay, let's apply the blue teal, which is my favorite. Assign, apply, just give okay. So our chart looks neat and clean. The lightest color refers to profit. The middle color refers to quantity of amount of products sold. And in the third case, we are referring to the sum of sales. Again, the values are not very properly oriented. So I'll right click format. I'll choose sum of profit first. It is in thousands and dollars. So what I'll do is I'll keep it in currency custom. I want only one decimal place. If it is negative, it has to be in brackets. And display units, I'll keep it in thousands. Thousands also doesn't seem to work properly. Let's keep millions then. Sorry, this is in not axis. I should do it in pane. Currency custom negative should be this. It should have only one decimal. It should be represented in dollars. Thousands. So let's see how thousands work. Perfect. Thousands look neat and clean. And then let's change the format size. Let's keep only 7, but full black and bold. That way we can see the numbers properly. Let's do the same formatting for quantity as well as for sales. I'll go to quantity. In quantity, I'll keep this 7, full black and bold. Quantity is an integer. It is not corresponding to any currencies, so we are going to keep it as it is. Then we will go with the third one, which is sales. Sales again, I'll pick it here. It will be full black, but the font size will be 7. It will be in bold, and the number format will be, it will show one decimal, and then it will show it in thousands. Perfect. Let's change the prefix to dollars. Let's see the individual axis in full screen. So look at this. So individual axis is basically having individual y-axis for a common x-axis. You can add as many information, as many values as you wanted to have in case. But how should be the order? The order should be quantity first, sales next, then profit, which should be the case. So I'll keep profit at the last, quantity at the first. Oh, why it is not changing the view? Profit should be on top of everything. It's not changing the way. Okay, I'm not changing it here. Just a second. Profit should be in the top. Quantity should be in the bottom, and the sales should be there. Okay, it makes sense. By selling 2,976 products in the accessories subcategory, the sales happened was $1,67,000, of which $41,000 is my profit. Again, we can compare the amount of quantities sold. Excuse me. The amount of quantity sold and the sales happened by selling those much quantity. Look here, in binders we have sold like 6,000 products, but the sales generated by selling 6,000 products is only $2 lakh. Hence the profit is also very less, $30,000 only. Whereas if you see here in copiers we have sold only 234 products, where the total sales amount is $149,000, whereas the profit seems to be the highest among all the other subcategories that we have. So we can see all the information, all the relevant information about the business in one sheet, but having different y-axis for one common x-axis. This is what an individual axis talks about. Then let's go on to the next one. The drawback is when we add multiple levels of information, then it becomes really clumsy for the user to understand this. But this is very simple and straightforward. Let's go to dual axis. Dual axis is basically whenever we cannot create a normal chart, a custom advanced chart using the show me pane, then in all those cases we will use dual axis to create advanced charts. Let me show you them with examples. I would like to keep subcategory. Okay, I'll take the best one. Category. Ship mode. There are 4 ship modes. I would like to know the profit in each and every ship mode. Done. What I'll do is I'll like to create a donut chart. But see here in this visualization we don't have donut chart option. So first we will create a pie chart. Once you create the pie chart, we will be increasing the size of this chart. I'm using control right arrow and up arrow to increase the size of the chart. The size of the chart is increased. Then what I'll do is I'll duplicate this chart by double clicking on the empty row pill and adding 0 twice. Once I add it, it actually duplicates the chart. See here also we will have 2 different mark shelf. In the previous case we had 3 different mark shelf, one for profit, one for sales and one for quantity. Whereas in dual axis we are having 2 different axes. So I'll go to second mark shelf, remove all the elements that are there here, reduce the size a little. Then I'm going to change the color of this chart into white, which is the background. So since there is a circle with a background of white, I'm going to mask this circle behind this pie chart. Hence this chart will become a dual axis donut chart for us. Let me decrease the size a little more. Looks good to me. I'll right click, deselect show header, deselect. Okay. So let me show you what I did. So once you create 2 different charts, you wanted to merge these 2 charts and create a custom visualization. Right click on the second axis, choose dual axis option. It will blend the chart. Then if you want to work on the sizes, you can work. Then right click, See here, synchronous axis. If this is of going to be of two different axes, then we can use synchronous axis. I'll show you synchronous axis with another example. In this case, I'll simply deselect header. Here also I'll deselect the header. Okay, put this in full screen. Entire view, right click, start formatting. Same rules for formatting. Remove the grid lines and zero lines in both your rows and columns, and remove your borders. Hence, that way your chart will look nice and clean. Okay, we have this. Once we have this, we can actually format this if we want to do it. In the first second place, I will simply drag profit, right? So I'm going to drag profit into label. This is the overall profit. So I will format this so that the user can understand what is this. Here also I'll drag ship mode into label. So it will tell what color is what. We don't need the legends to tell what is this. Without legends, we can put this in the view directly as well. Then I can remove the contents in the tooltip. Once this is there, we can actually do two things. One, either I can show the profit generated by each and every ship mode in standard class, how much of shopping, how much of profit is generated in first class, how much of a percentage of, sorry, how much of profit is generated, and so on. However, rather than showing the number, the best thing would be to show the percentage of share contributed to the overall profit. The overall profit is, once again, let me remove this in the tooltip. $286,000. We need to know how much of a contribution standard class has provided in to my overall profit. How much of a profit is contributed by first class, and the remaining shipping modes. So I'm going to convert this profit text into a percentage of total using quick table calculation. Looks like standard class delivery is contributing 60% to my overall profit. Whereas same day delivery is not contributing or adding to much of my profit, but still it's a good share, 6% of share to the overall profit. And first class is contributing 17%, whereas the second class delivery is contributing to 20% of my overall profit. We can format this again. This can be small, bold, black. Perfect. If I wanted to change the color of the pie, I can choose edit colors and then assign it, but I am happy with the color here. I can go ahead and see the chart in the entire view. So this particular donut chart couldn't have been created unless or until we were able to mask this circle inside the pie chart. So that is where, excuse me, I have some throat issues, I believe. So that is where it gives you the ability to mask two different charts to create a custom chart. This donut chart is one of the most prominent chart that we'll have to create using dual axis. Let me show you the other different types, because in among all the axis components that we have in Tableau, dual axis is one of the most widely used technique. I'll keep subcategory, and then I'll have sales. What I'm going to do is create a bar chart, a simple bar chart. how to beautify this. The concept is all about beautifying this. For me to create a dual axis, I have to duplicate my existing measure, which is sum of sales. So what I'm going to do is, first let me put everything in full view and then duplicate this. What I wanted to do was, I wanted to keep the first chart as a area chart and the second chart as bar chart, but the size of the bars should be literally small. So I'll create it like a bridge, dual axis in the second thing, and then I'll go to the second chart, change the chart type to bar charts. See here, the bar charts seem to be present higher than the sales in visual representation, but right click on the charts and choose synchronize axis, so the data becomes properly adjusted, and then I can work on the size of the bar. Looks like it is too big now. I'll still reduce this. Area chart doesn't have any influence with size. I'm going to just try increasing the size a little more. Looks okay to me. Now the color doesn't seem fitting, so we'll change the color to the lightest color possible, and in the second one we'll keep the darkest color. So it is simply a contrast option that I'm picking here to beautify the chart. Then what else can we do is, we can do one more thing, which is making the area applying border, which should be the darkest color that we had. So that way what happens is, it looks like a bridge, and it looks like a different type of area chart and a bar chart together, basically trying to beautify the chart with the help of dual axis. Again, this is a custom chart that cannot be created in from the show me pane. Remove the borders, row divider, column divider, don't show the header. This should be clean and good. Okay, if I wanted to show the numbers, I can show the numbers in any one of the place. I would like to show it in the bar chart, sum of sales. Again, I can format it directly here. Excuse me. It is taking a little time to execute this query. Once query is executed, I'll format the sum of sales that we have in the data set as well. It's taking a little longer than the usual time. Perfect, it got executed. I'll go to default properties, choose number format. Number format by default it is in, it just looks perfect to me, but the display units should be in millions. See what happens if I keep millions. Format, okay, keeping it in millions doesn't help. So currency custom display units can be in thousands, and this can be a dollar, and we can show the negative like this. Again, the font has to be smaller so it doesn't strike too much and consume so much of space in the view. So we are now able to see the information. We can actually tilt the data, like the markers, the data labels basically, to show it in one particular direction. Let me put in full screen. So we can very clearly see that phones subcategory and chairs subcategory seems to generate more profit than the other subcategories that we have. Talking about the minimal worst performing subcategories, fasteners, envelopes, labels, art, supplies, all these categories are performing really poorly in terms of generating sales to the data. This is one chart. What if I wanted to have actual versus target? Okay, let me create a column called a target since we don't have it. I'm putting both sales and target against subcategory. Now let me put it in the table. Default properties number format, keep it in thousands. So perfect. So the target is wrong. What happened here? Sorry. It should have been just sales against this value. So at each and every value, it will calculate the target. I'll just remove this, keep the sales. Mm, target seems to be wrong. Okay, I did not add it. Oh, my bad. So this is the target actually, but this has to be added with the existing value. Sales plus this. So in this case, it will work properly. Yes. So see here, the target should have been in the the target that was kept for subcategory accessories was $197,000, whereas sales was only $167,000. In appliances, the target was $127,000, whereas the target achieved was $108,000 only. What if I would like to show actual against target and how much of a gap that each and every subcategory is having in fulfilling the target? Since we are having two different measures, let's create bar chart in both the cases. Once we create bar chart in both the cases, right click. This is basically individual axis what we are seeing now, but I will change sales first and keep target next. Then in sales, I would like to keep the size to the minimum. And then I'll come to target. In target, I'll change the bar chart into a Gantt bar. Right click, dual axis this. In dual axis, I'll right click. See here, both the values are merging together, but the target is actually greater than actual data. So I'll use synchronize axis, which will keep them separately. Now what I'll do is I'll keep sales as a bar chart. Once we have sales as a bar chart, let us put in interview. Right click, deselect show header. Right click, deselect show header. Very clearly, we can see what is the target and what is the actual. Let's format this to distinguish between data points here. I'm going to remove all the grid lines. So also I don't like the borders as well. Now what we can do is we can increase the size of the bars. But we'll keep it in light color. By keeping them in two different zones, what we can say is we can see how much of a gap that each and every subcategory is facing in terms of achieving their target. The target is like here, whereas the current sales value is like present here. What we can do is we can add labels. I will add sales to the sales label. I'm going to keep it in 7 bold, but it will be inside the chart. Talking about target, I'm going to keep the target value outside this. Now again here I will change the formatting, nice and clean, bold it, perfect. So we can keep it far away from the and we using dual axis, we can actually produce these types of information which will be very informative for the business user. It is very clear that in charts the gap is very high. We need to accomplish a total sales of $390,000, whereas what we have achieved is only $330,000. There is a deficit of $60,000 still present in the what is this, present in the achieved, sorry, present in the sales that has to be generated. So dual axis becomes very important when we wanted to compare data and show the information. Let us try to show the same information with a different way, achieved versus deficit. I can keep the same chart and I'll see achieved versus deficit. Achieved is the sales value, so this is correct, but for target we need to replace it with deficit. How will I have deficit? Since it is not present in data, I'll create the information. So sum of sales minus target is basically my deficit. That's it. So in the place of target I'm going to keep deficit, replace it with deficit, and then I'll drag the same thing here also. Again, since it is in negative numbers, I will just convert the output into a positive number. I think keeping it in negative might. Yeah, this is much better than the other one. So looks like we are still running $30,000 deficit from achieving the target in accessories. In binders, we are having a $36,000 deficit. In chairs, we have a $58,000 deficit. In copiers, we have a $26,000 deficit. So we can understand the deficit that has to be achieved to meet the target that has been assigned to the particular subcategory. So this is how we can take the help of all the types of dual axis components and play with it. With that, we will move on to the next axis concept. The next axis concept is blended axis. Blended axis is very similar to a dual axis only, but it will not create two different mark shelves. It will allow you to compare two different measures in the same chart itself. The disadvantage in using the dual axis is that you will have two different mark shelves for two different charts, two different measures. It will not allow you to compare between multiple measures. It can be only two measures that will be allowed for comparison. So how can I go ahead and build a chart which will let me to compare multiple things, and or how can I improve the performance? While in dual axis, the problem is having only two charts, and two different mark cells will be created. These two mark cells will actually consume more memory than the other ones. So it becomes really tough when we have multiple dual axes in the data in the dashboard, whereas having a blended axis will overcome this issue of having multiple measures getting compared. But again, the smallest drawback or the difference between our dual axis and blended axis is that in blended axis we cannot have two different chart types. Here we are having two different chart types. One is a Gantt bar, another one is a bar chart. Whereas in the blended axis, it will not allow you to have multiple chart types. It will allow you to have only one chart. It can be a line chart, it can be a bar chart, it can be anything else, but it will allow you to have only one chart type. That is the key difference between your blended axis and dual axis. Let me show you the view. I'll pick subcategories. I'll keep sales first. Let me create a bar chart out of it. I'll change the chart type into line. So this is how subcategory is distributed. Now what I wanted to do is I wanted to compare sales with target. What I can simply do is drag target on top of sales. Okay, as soon as I drag it on top of sales, you'll see here I did not create a secondary mark shelf. It has created only one mark shelf. However, it allowed you to compare your sales and target. Clearly, target is not met in almost all the subcategories, whereas in art, suppliers, labels, fasteners, and envelopes, where the sales is less, the target is also very less. It is very easily achievable, but products like phones and things, the target is far away from the current value. What if I wanted to know how many quantities have been sold in this? I can drag them down here. It will now compare three different measures. So this is the quantity, and this is my sales, and this is my target. What if I wanted to know the profit? I can keep adding as many measures as I want to understand the business. Now the idea is to compare between multiple measures at once without changing the chart type. That is where blended axis comes into picture to help us combine or compare multiple measures without breaking our head, without creating multiple visualization, without creating multiple charts and all those things. Here I cannot have two different chart types. If I am using a line chart, I'm going to have to use the line chart for the remaining measures that I wanted to compare with as well. If I wanted to use a bar chart, I can use a bar chart something like this, which is a a stacked bar chart here. In the stacked bar chart, we have sales, profit. Looks like sales and profit in the same color. What I'll do is I'll keep it like this, duplicate this, and create a bar chart out of it. So this is basically my sales, and this is my accessories, this is my profit, and quantity will be far very less, which we are not able to see here. Yeah, look at this is the quantity is 5600, 5900 in binders. In all other cases, a quantity is not so very visible because the quantity is very less compared to the other measures that we are trying to compare with each other. So this is how we can actually leverage the ability of axis concepts in Tableau to play with different types of visualization. If I wanted to compare multiple measures together, I can keep them as individual charts. If I wanted to keep different chart types for each and every measure, I can use individual axis. But if I wanted to create a custom chart using only two measures, I wanted to compare between only two measures, then in that case I'll go with dual axis. Again, in dual axis also you will be having ability to create two different charts, whereas in a blended axis you will be able to combine multiple measures, compare multiple measures, but the problem is it will not allow you to create multiple chart types for it. Only one chart type can be used to compare between all the measures that we have. This is the idea. Now let me format these two charts and see all the charts one by one. This doesn't look so good. Format, grid lines, remove the don't want to see this. Fit this into the entire view. Instead of line, I'll keep it area. Looks nice and clean. And achieve this is deficit. Okay, let me come here, change these things. Format, grid lines. Um, okay. And if I wanted to enable labels, I can enable them as well. The labels can be in the minimal size. So this is your individual axis where I have one common x-axis and I have three different y-axis to compare between them. Then in dual axis we saw how to create a donut chart using which we can actually tell the user about the share of percentage of different components in a member, different components of a dimension inside the overall data. And we have also seen a custom chart where I have combined area chart and a bar chart to create something of a skyscraper type of chart. Then I have created a sales versus target chart, whereas my target is represented in Gantt bars and my sales is represented in a bar chart. Then we have created a deficit versus achieved, whereas we are able to compare between the total amount of value that has to be generated as to achieve the target and what is the value that is currently achieved in the particular subcategory. Next thing is blended axis. In blended axis, I can compare multiple measures to understand how the data is distributed. The same thing here as well. But the advantage is it will not consume so much of memory because it will not allow you to create four different chart types. It will allow you to create only one chart type. That is what axis information is all about. Let us go back to this slide and see if we have missed anything. Individual axis, dual axis, and we have blended axis. Yeah, in this case also it is helpful when if you see the dual axis here, if you wanted to see how the data is distributed as a trend, that also you can actually use to show the data punches. So number of orders is this much and what is the sales achieved through by selling this many number of products, very similar to what we have built. Blended axis is having only one chart type. Here we have multiple chart types but the idea is blended access will allow you only one chart type in this case. Let's get into the next topic: reference axis, reference lines, reference distribution, and reference band. Get started with reference line. Reference lines are very helpful in adding more layers to the information that we have in the visualization. So what happens is you might be creating a simple view. Let me create a normal view. Hmm. I'll apply formatting just like how we did in the previous cases. Um, yes, a title. Here what I can do is add sales information. Again, the labels are very big. We will keep this sales y-axis here because it's going to be helpful. The size a little. Perfect. So maybe I can change the color into something little darker. Okay, perfect. Once we have created this chart, what suppose the user wanted to know what is the average sales that is achieved through achieved across the subcategories, and I wanted to know what are the subcategories that are below average, that have performed below average sales, and what are the subcategories that have performed above average sales. In those cases, what we can do is we can actually subset the data, create a new calculation, and then put it in dual axis and show it. But that is a very tedious process, and that is a workaround. The straightforward way is by choosing your y axis. What you have to do is you have to choose the option called add reference line. In add reference line, you have four different options. We are going to see all four different. First thing is reference line. What does this reference line does is it creates a line in the chart distinguishing between your condition, whatever elements that are filling a condition and not filling the condition. Here I have chosen the entire table. So what happens is it will show me what is the average across this particular table. See here what it is taking. It is taking the average of sales. Once you have the average of sales, you can show the value here. But see here, by the label that we are showing here is decided by the computer, but we don't want that to happen. We will customize this. So what I'll do is I will say average sales is. Here I will choose the drop down where I will choose value. Once I choose the value, it will give me average sales is $135,000. If I want a tooltip, I can have. However, I don't want to have a tooltip here. And let me keep it in the thickest color possible. Let's keep it in orange and see how does it work. It looks okay to me. This is the simplest line. We will see different types of formatting. But ideally, if I deselect this, put it in view, I can very clearly tell what are the states, what are the subcategories that have performed above average, and what are the subcategories that have performed below average sales. Since this data is not sorted, let me sort it and then show you. Now it becomes very evident that fasteners, labels, envelopes, art, supplies, paper, furnishings, appliances, bookcases did not perform even the average sales that is there in the data set. Various products subcategories like copiers, accessories, machines, binders, tables, storage, chats, and phones have performed really well, that are well above the average. Chats and phones have performed extremely well, so we can reward them to perform even better. Various these subcategories are not have not even met the average sales, so it becomes issue for the business holder. They need to focus on these subcategories to improve the business. So that is what we can understand by reference line. This is simple formatting. What can be added more is, let me show the header first. Right click, edit reference line. Here in reference line, by default I just chose the line only. What if I wanted to add line and confidence interval? Confidence interval is a statistical estimate that we will use with 5% alpha level. So if I use this, it again gets again it tells us that furnishings, appliances and books can also be excluded because they are very close to average. However, fasteners, labels, envelopes, art and supplies and papers are completely far away from the average of the data set. So basically, this particular confidence interval tells you what can be my threshold of acceptance. Threshold of acceptance above is this and below is this. That is $82,000. So any subcategories with sales of greater than $82,000 will be also can also be excluded, because the machine says this is acceptable average, whereas subcategories with less than $82,000 are not acceptable. They need to be worked upon to improve it. Whereas here the above average is $188,000. What it says is subcategories with sales value of up to $188,000 are average only. Anything above $188,000 are only above average performers, exceptional performers in our business. That is what it says using confidence interval. What if you wanted to keep only the confidence interval and not the line? That is also possible. Only confidence interval, simply apply. It will tell you what is the minimum threshold and what is the maximum threshold. Looks like 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 subcategories are falling below the average range, whereas all the other products, all the other subcategories are falling above the average sales. So this is how we can actually take help of reference lines and try to add more layers to the data. This is all about adding more layers to the data only. Here you have an option called per pane and per cell, and you have the option to choose different types of aggregation operation. What is the median sale that happened? I wanted to have only the median sale is $115,000. So there are subcategories that did not even perform median sales in the business. Any reference line, instead of average I can choose median, and then I can choose minimum, maximum, sum, total, all those things I can choose and see this. What is per pane and per cell? So this is the entire table view that we have. What if we have this view broken into two or multiple different sectors? Say for an example, I would like to break them in by ship mode. There are 4 different ship modes. See here. Now across the table it tells me what is the average value. Let's keep ship mode away. Let's keep something which has very minimal categories, very minimal divisions. Category, perfect. See here, furniture is 1 pane, office supplies is 1 pane, technology is 1 pane. But the average that we have here is for the entire table. What happens when I actually keep the logic per pane? So it will tell me what is the average in furniture, average sales in furniture, what is the average sales in office supplies, and average sales in technology. Per pane, I'll choose per pane and just give OK. Look at this. The average in furnishing us $1,85,000, whereas in office supplies it is just $80,000. In technology it is $2,09,000, which is the average sales that is generated in the technology. So per pane it will calculate this operation and give you more information about the data. deselect shoulder, so we can see the data completely. Looks like copiers, accessories and machines can also be forgiven because they are very close to the average. Here we have fasteners, labels, envelopes, art and supplies. Looks like office supplies is not performing well compared to all the other two categories. Furniture also is performing really well, $92,000 as minimum value. In technology also it is $150,000 minimum value. However, in office supplies, fasteners have generated only $3,000 as sales. So this is all about playing with the data and trying to add more information across the data set. This is reference lines. Let me duplicate this. Reference band. So what does reference band does is, a reference band simply calculates the it will show you the same thing. It will also highlight a particular portion of the data, but basis two conditions. Here we are seeing only one condition: average sales is this much. What if I wanted to add more layers or two conditions in the verse? I'll ask the machine to show the header. Then right click, remove the reference line. Once the reference line is removed, if I wanted to add a new reference line, then I can add them by right clicking here, choose add reference line band. So yeah, again the concept remains the same. Entire table per pane and per cell. The entire pane, the machine is asking me two conditions: where the band should start from and where the band should end to. So that is what from and to concept here that we are having. So what I'll do is I would like to see all the subcategories that starts with average sales and goes above average. It can be maximum, it can be anything, so I'm just keeping maximum in that case. I'll change the computation into custom and then I will say average sales is, with a space I can use the value. Then I will change this computation into custom again, where here also I'll say maximum value is value. If I wanted to add a border to both the cases, I can add it. It will add a border, nice and clean border. If I wanted to have a very lighter background or very light shade, that also I can do it. Here we go. We can very clearly see that the data is now distributed from the maximum, from the average to the maximum, and it is actually showing you what is the average sales in the entire data set, $135,000, whereas the maximum sales in the business is $330,000. And what are the subcategories that are actually falling into the bucket of this average sales, above average sales concept? Tables, charts, binders, storage, copiers, accessories, machines and phones. So these are the subcategories that are actually falling above average, falling above the average, whereas the remaining categories are below average in terms of sales. So you can use different measures also, not just above average and below average. You can use different measures to see different insights from the data set. That is the idea here. Let's see if there are any other formatting that is there here. Edit reference line. Again, I can do the same operation per band also. Per pane, sorry, not per band, per pane as well. What is the average value per pane and what is the maximum value generated in that particular pane? In furniture, looks like the maximum value is $328,000, whereas in office supplies it is $224,000. In technology, it is $330,000. So it lets you understand how the data is distributed per pane or as well. we can very clearly see what are the products and what are the subcategories that are performing well and what are the subcategories and products that are not performing well, and start focusing on it to improvise on your business. That is the key idea here. Let us see if I missed any data points here. Edit reference line. That's it. Banned to, banned from. Again, you can have tooltips if you want. I don't want to have any tooltips here. Just keep it. But if I wanted to have a tooltip, we can customize a tooltip as well. But I'm just going to keep it as it is. And yeah, we'll come to distribution next. But here we are talking only about reference band. So reference band is done. What I'll do is I'll duplicate this for reference distribution. The next topic is going to be reference distribution. I'll remove all the reference lines that are here, and then what I'll do is right click. Distribution is completely statistical. It lets you to see how the data is distributed using multiple statistical measures. Go to distribution. I'll choose the entire table. By default, it is actually showing you where is the 60 to 80 percentage of the average sales is present. It is 60 to average. It is not the 100 percentage average. 60 to 80 percentage of the average. We can custom create the labels, or we can simply show the value also. Here only I can choose value. 60 percentage of the average is $81, $81,000, and 80 percentage of the average is $108,000. So this is what we can understand and see how many of the subcategories are actually falling in the buckets of 60 to 80 percentage of the average sales. Looks like multiple subcategories in office supplies is not even falling into the bucket of 60 to 80 percentage of the average sales. So right click, edit reference line, come here, and then choose 60 to 80. Again, we can choose different types of statistical measures. I can choose percentiles, I can choose quantiles, I can choose standard deviation also. Again, all these values are editable. I can give, I wanted to check if some of any of these products subcategories are falling within 75 to 100 percentage of the average, which is totally fine with me. Even if the subcategory has generated sales which is 75 percentage of the average sales, I am totally happy with it. But anything less than 75 percentage, I need to focus on my business. I can choose a different if I wanted to have a different sales, different parameter and a different measure, I can have it, or I can create a new parameters here to create it. Again, I can choose what type of what type of aggregation I wanted to have. If I wanted to have average, I can have average. If I wanted to have sum, I can have sum. If I wanted to have minimum or maximum, I can have it appropriately. I'm just going to keep it average and then choose percentiles. Or instead of percentile, I can choose percentage, same thing only, and show it. See here, I have chosen something wrong here. Edit the reference line. It should give me 70 to 20 percentage of average, not total, the average. So see here, almost all the subcategories in technology is falling within the brackets of 75 to 100. So technology is performing really good. Talking about office supplies has very less number of subcategories that are fulfilling the 75, 80%, 100 percentage. Whereas even in furniture, almost everything is falling into the bucket of 75 to 100 percentage of the average sales. Only furnishings is not falling into the bucket of 75 percentage average sales, because it is very less than it is very, the margin of difference is very small to the 75 percentage average, which is $101,000. whereas the furnishings have generated $92,000. So this is also not of my concern. So as a business person, my focus will be to work on office supplies, where I have multiple subcategories with a lot of them present below 75% of my average sales. That is how we can take or leverage the reference distribution to help. Let us see other important metrics in reference distribution. The next thing is, this is percentage. What if I wanted to see this in standard deviation? If I wanted to see this in standard deviation, I wanted to see whether this is normally distributed or not using 3 standard deviation. Within 3 standard deviation, I wanted the entire data set should be falling within them. Let me put this in full view. Look at this. The below range of 3 standard deviation is minus $164,000, which is $1,64,000. Whereas the positive, the upside the standard deviation is $4,35,000, which makes us believe, which makes us an understanding that this data set is a normally distributed data set. If it is present, if 99.7% of the data points are falling within 3 standard deviation, then it means it is a normally distributed data set. In this case, it is very evident that it is actually falling within 3 standard deviation, and hence we can quantify this data set as a normally distributed data set, at least this particular column. Then in distribution we have the line, and yes, so what we can do is we can actually fill above and fill below the values to show how it is actually been given. I can fill above, I can fill below as well. Just give OK. So what happens is this dark color, the whatever subcategories that are there inside this dark color becomes lesser than the 75% of the average, whereas this lighter color means it is generated greater than 95 100% of above average. Basically, I can keep it symmetric, so it will be very same in both the cases. I can reverse this as well. So these are the subcategories that have been the one within the box with light shade in it are the subcategories that have been between that is actually between 75 to 100% of the average sales. Various in all the other cases. Yes, that's it. And the other shade that we are seeing here are basically what is this? The below region and above region. Perfect. That brings us to the end of reference distribution. The last thing that we are going to see in reference concept is reference box plots. So whenever we have outliers in the data set, it can be distinguished or it can be highlighted with the help of box whiskers plot. Let me plot a simple box whisker plot using show me pane, and then let's use reference axis to show them across states. Let it load. Okay, since I've created used state, it has created a map for me. However, I would like to keep a text. Oh, shit. I don't want the country, I just want the states. There are 49 states. Let us see the sales value and see if any of the states have performed exceptionally well or exceptionally poor. To do what? We'll take the help of a box plot. Using the show me pane, we were able to create a box plot. Here what I'll do is I'll try to increase the size. This is fine with me. What I can do is, if I wanted to know what are these states, California has generated $458,000, which is far away from the mean sales. The upper whisker value is $89,000. So any state that has generated more than $89,000 are exceptionally well performing states. And if there are any poor states, the lower whisker value is 1000. So let's see what is the value of District of Columbia. District of Columbia has performed poorer. Okay, it is 1K, right? So there are no outliers in the lower region. So which means there are no poor performing states. However, there are several, exceptionally performing states. To drag and drop, I'll just drag and drop this. It'll tell me what are these states. California, New York. Since there are huge numbers here, it does not reflect it here. So I'll remove to keep it simple. Now here I'll right click, add a reference line. Since it is already a box plot, it doesn't show me a box plot. What I'm going to do is remove the grid lines, remove all the reference lines here. Go to a new sheet. Right click, add reference line, choose box plot. Here you can define your whiskers calculations and all those things. Here the data is max data within 1.5 times the IQR, or you can choose the maximum extent. This is the statistically correct to use data within 1.5 times the IQR. Then to have, let's keep the modern style, and the color has to be contrasting and the border has to be thick. Whiskers should also be thicker. If I just give, okay, what happens when we are doing reference in box plot? So the box plot and references, it will take each and every individual data point and try to give you the box plot out of it, box plot for this finally. But however, it does not make any sense if I wanted to see what are the outliers. So rather we can directly go ahead and build a box plot using show me pane and format it as required. Format, choose this and format this. Perfect. I would like to keep a thicker border. Whiskers also should be thicker. And I would like to keep the circle in lightest shades possible, or darker color, but I would like to keep reduce opacity. So we can see that there are multiple states which actually have performed better than the average sales. What are the states? Pennsylvania, Washington, Texas, New York, and California. So these are the states that have performed better than the other states to achieve this output out of it. So that brings us to the end of box plot. Also we can beautify this to keep things simple. Format, I'll just remove all the grid lines. And reduce the font size. So if you see this information becomes very evident that there are outliers in sales, which is a good thing in business because you need best performing states than the worst performing states. Looks like there are multiple places in which the business is actually performing better than all the other states. This is our reference distribution. Let's come from reference lines. Reference lines, the concept where we will be able to add more layers to the business, add more layers to the visualization by choosing a particular metric. I can choose any aggregation from the list that is there in the reference line, and then I can show that as a line. I can also show the confidence interval across the lines, 0.5% above, 0.5% below, which is the margin of acceptance, and tell this is something that can be accepted. Whatever dimensions are the members of dimensions that are falling within the confidence interval can be allowed or accepted. The other data points that are not falling within the line or above below the line, those data points, those members in the dimension becomes dimension members that are not actually fulfilling a particular condition. Whereas talking about reference band simply takes two things. It talks from the a particular position and highlights values till a particular position within a range, always within a range. It will tell you how the data is distributed. If I wanted to know the data is distributed from a particular minimal value to a maximum value, we can see it with the help of a reference band, which will show us two different conditions. It can, both these conditions can be of any aggregation, not necessary that if I use minimum in one condition I have to use maximum next. No, it should be a sensible two conditions. I can see it from the average sales till the maximum sales of a business. So it tells me that these are the subcategories that are falling above average, whereas these many subcategories are not fulfilling my, are not even for, are actually below average performers in the office supplies category. Talking about the next thing, which is reference band. Reference band is simply nothing but a concept where we will be adding a particular type of distribution, a particular type of metric within two. It will also be represented in distribution only, but it can take different statistical measures like percentage, percentiles, and it lets you to play with that particular statistical measure. I can also see if the data set is normally distributed or not with the help of standard deviation. The level of standard deviation is -3 to +3. So these are the different ways where we can actually take the help of both reference as well as access concepts to add more layers to the information, add more insights to the report. Okay, that brings us to the end of the class, I think. Let's see if I have missed anything. Okay. Reference bands and box plots. Okay, box plots again. To give one more, to explain this one more time, box plot simply tells you the outliers presence. If the outlier is present, there are two chances of outlier presence. One, it can be present in the present above the average, above a particular threshold. In the second case, it can be present below a particular lower threshold. If the data points are present above a particular threshold, then it becomes positive outliers. Depends on the dimension. It is purely depending on the dimension. If you are having errors in your data, having more outliers in the above range is not a positive sign. So it purely depends on the dimension which we are dealing with. Reference band is also done. The next last thing was, okay, perfect. We are done. Cool. So let me recap what we have learned in this entire session and wrap up for the day. We started by understanding axis concepts. Axis concepts are simply three types. One is individual axis, another one is blended axis, next one is dual axis. Individual axis is a concept where we will be comparing multiple measures of same dimension. The x-axis will be same, but my y-axis can be of different measures, and every y-axis will be of individual scales. The scale of quantity will be different from the scale for salary. The scale of salary will be different from scale of sales, and all the other things. The advantage of using this is it lets you to compare different measures with different chart types in the same sheet. Now the next thing is dual axis. In dual axis, we can compare two measures only. We cannot compare multiple measures. We can compare only two measures, but these two measures can be compared, and an advanced chart can be created out of it. And there are several advanced charts that we can actually create using dual axis. The best example would be a donut chart, a T chart, and a lollipop chart, a heat map. Heat map is directly created, so other charts can also be created. Then we learned about blended axis, where it is where here also it allows you to compare between multiple measures. But the best thing about dual axis, blended axis, is that it will not create multiple chart types, and hence it will not consume so much of memory to display things. One drawback would be it will allow you to compare between multiple measures in the same chart type. If you are using line chart for one measure, you'll have to use the same line chart for all the different measures to compare them together. If you are using bar chart, you have to use the same bar chart to compare the different measures as well. That is what a dual blended axis does. Talking about reference lines, distributions, and band. Reference lines simply creates a line to distinguish between two things based on one condition. This condition will be always based upon aggregation operations. Various reference bands are an advanced component of reference lines only, where it will allow you to distinguish between two things based on two different conditions, and both the conditions can have aggregations, different aggregations altogether. Then talking about reference distribution, it lets you understand how the data is distributed using several statistical measures like percentages, percentiles, quantiles, and standard deviation. It also lets you to see if the data is normally distributed or not. Then we also saw about box plot. Box plot lets you to play with outliers. If the outlier is present, we will know how to deal with it. We'll have to either remove it or replace it with the mean value of the data set. That brings us to the end of this session. Thank you so much for joining this class. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to OdinSchool. We will see you in the next session. Thank you so much.